Fear is perhaps the oldest emotion we know. Older than language, older than civilization, older than every story, every philosophy, every political system humans ever built. Fear is the whisper that kept our ancestors alive when they heard leaves rustle in the dark, unsure if it was a rabbit or a tiger, and greed, though often seen as ugly, is simply the flip side of survival, the natural hunger to secure more food, more land, more lovers, more followers, more everything. Because in evolution, scarcity was the rule, not abundance. So the brain evolved to crave what felt scarce and avoid what felt dangerous. And when you understand that these two forces, fear and greed, live inside every human like two wolves wrestling for control, suddenly history, the stock market, politics, relationships, society, nations, even your personal decisions begin to make sense in a way textbooks rarely explain. Imagine our early ancestors sitting around a fire 200,000 years ago, hearing the howl of wolves nearby. Heart racing, adrenaline pumping, pupils dilated, ready to run or fight. This was fear doing its job, activating the amygdala, releasing cortisol, sharpening senses to detect danger because survival required constant vigilance. And when the wolves disappeared and the tribe lived another day, greed arrived quietly like a warm hunger. Maybe we should store extra food. Maybe we should take that other cave. Maybe we should conquer the neighboring tribe before they conquer us. And that little greedy voice, which in biology is tied to dopamine circuits, reward anticipation, the thrill of gain, slowly shaped human expansion, agriculture, trade, currency, stock markets, empires. So when we say fear and greed are the two basic emotional poles, we aren't being poetic. We are being biological, evolutionary, brutally factual, because MRI studies show that both fear and reward circuits sit deep in the limbic brain, below conscious reasoning, firing milliseconds before the thinking prefrontal cortex gets a chance to evaluate, which means most decisions, even the ones we believe are logical, begin emotionally, and only afterward we invent rational explanations like lawyers defending a case already decided by a primal judge. And if fear tells us danger ahead, greed tells us opportunity ahead. And depending on the childhood we had, the attachment we formed with caregivers, the environment we live in now, one emotion becomes louder than the other. Children raised in safe, nurturing homes with predictable love develop stronger emotional regulation. Their baseline fear is lower, so they take healthy risks, explore, innovate, build companies. While children raised in chaos, neglect, unpredictability often grow into adults with constant low-grade fear humming under the surface, instantly scanning for threat even where there is none, leading to anxiety, mistrust, defensive behavior, or on the contrary, excessive greed as overcompensation. Like the millionaire who hoards money not because he loves wealth, but because losing it triggers childhood terror of scarcity. And if you zoom out from individuals to societies, you see the same pattern like a pendulum swinging through history. Times of fear unite people, and times of greed divide them. Take World War II, for example. Fear of a common enemy united entire nations. Ideological differences were set aside. Americans rationed sugar and gasoline, women joined factories, black and white soldiers fought side by side. Collective fear created collective cohesion. But fast forward to times of prosperity, when economies boom, stock markets rise, governments grow rich. Greed creeps in quietly, corruption spreads, inequalities widen, gated communities on one side, slums on the other, and people forget what war looked like, forget hunger, forget discipline, until the pendulum swings back through recession, crisis, inflation, pandemic, war, resetting the system, forcing unity again. And this cycle repeats across generations as reliably as seasons change. Historians like John Glubb called it the cycle of empires. Every civilization begins in hardship and fear, then rises through discipline and courage, peaks with abundance, then declines into complacency and greed before collapsing. And if you look at Rome, the British Empire, the USSR, even the modern US-China dynamic, you notice the same psychological rhythm. Fear tightens society, greed loosens it. And stock markets behave identically, driven not by cold logic but human emotions. Warren Buffett famously said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." Because market crashes happen when collective fear peaks, selling in panic, while bubbles form when greed dominates. Like the dot-com bubble, the housing bubble, cryptomanias. Neuroscience studies even show traders with higher cortisol during volatile markets make risk-averse trades, while dopamine surges during bull markets increase risk-taking, proving again that financial systems are just collective psychology printed into numbers. And if you think societies collapse because of bad luck, look deeper. Fear of loss triggers protectionism, nationalism, extremism, echo chambers, while greed of elites breeds inequality, corruption, policy capture, creating frustration among masses until one spark ignites revolt, revolution, or regime change, as seen in French Revolution, Arab Spring, fall of Weimar Republic. India, too, with its democratic energy but high corruption pockets, showcases how unchecked greed among political and corporate elites widens inequality and fuels cycles of protests, social unrest, and yet, whenever crisis hits, like war or pandemic, suddenly unity reappears. Neighbors help neighbors, communities share food, humans become human again. Why? Because fear humbled greed and pushed the pendulum back. And if we internalize this truth, we can better predict world patterns. Whenever society feels too comfortable, the greedy pole expands like a bubble until it bursts, returning us to fear and discipline. Whenever society feels too threatened, fear unites us until safety returns and greed reawakens. And this cycle is not moral, it's mechanical. Nature runs on balance, night and day, inhale and exhale, creation and destruction, fear and greed. Even at personal level, think about dieting. Fear of getting unhealthy makes you start. Greed for taste makes you relapse. Relationships. Fear of abandonment makes you cling or run. Greed for love makes you chase validation. Parenting. Too much fear produces rigid children. Too much greed for their future produces pressure, anxiety, burnout. Everything is a pendulum trying to find the middle point where wisdom lives. Not absence of fear or greed, but awareness of both. Imagine a young man from a poor village, working tirelessly, not because he's passionate about wealth, but because deep inside he remembers the pain of hunger, bullying for wearing torn shoes. So he becomes a billionaire, buys 10 cars not to drive but to silence an inner voice whispering, "You're still not safe." And society calls him greedy, but maybe he is scared. Or imagine a child raised in a warm, secure home, parents responsive, environment stable. She grows into an entrepreneur who risks building a startup, not because she is fearless, but because fear does not rule her, greed does not consume her. She sits between poles, using fear for caution and greed for ambition, a balanced survival strategy. And when we extend this to nations, we see different childhoods. America grew on freedom, innovation, ambition, a land of opportunity. So greed for growth built Silicon Valley, Wall Street, Hollywood. But fear of losing dominance pushes protection policies, immigration restrictions, foreign conflicts. China grew from trauma, centuries of invasion, famine, cultural revolution. So baseline fear built discipline, unity, long-term planning. But now growing wealth awakens the greedy pole of expansion, global influence, technological dominance, and eventually the pendulum will swing again. No nation stays stable forever. History breathes like lungs, expansion and contraction. If we want peace, we must understand that repression of one pole breeds explosion later. Too much fear creates dictatorships. Too much greed creates oligarchies. Democracy without governance becomes chaos. Capitalism without ethics becomes exploitation. Socialism without incentive becomes stagnation. Like a child without boundaries becomes wild, and a child without love becomes broken. Everything returns to psychological roots. Childhood safety determines adult fear threshold, and societal governance determines collective fear threshold. When citizens feel safe, crime low, corruption low, trust high. They innovate, cooperate, invest long-term. When safety erodes, they hoard, blame, polarize, and polarization is just fear, disguised as ideology, left fearing inequality, right fearing loss of tradition, both wanting safety. Even religion emerged to soothe fear of the unknown, promising meaning after death, heaven for good, punishment for evil, carrot and stick, greed and fear. Marketing uses same formula, fear of missing out, FOMO, and greed for reward drives sales, elections, social media addiction, dopamine loops. Instagram makes you greed attention, news makes you fear disaster. The human nervous system is constantly toggled like a switch, and if we don't consciously notice, we become puppets pulled by ancient instincts. So the question becomes, can we break the cycle? Not fully, because biology does not change overnight, but we can learn to watch it, like watching weather instead of being drenched by rain. When fear arises, ask, is this danger real or imagined? When greed arises, ask, is this desire from abundance or insecurity? And at societal level, we must design systems that moderate both poles: transparency against corruption, safety nets against fear, education that teaches emotional regulation, not just math, governance that rewards long-term good over short-term gains. Imagine if children learned how the brain works, how cortisol rises under threat, how deep breathing lowers sympathetic arousal, how gratitude increases serotonin, how sharing activates oxytocin, bonding. Imagine if leaders were trained like therapists to regulate collective fear and greed instead of exploiting it. Imagine if media highlighted solutions, not just problems, unity, not just division. Then the pendulum might still swing, but with smaller arcs, gentler transitions, less collapse. Humanity might evolve from survival to fulfillment, where fear becomes awareness, not paralysis. Greed becomes ambition, not hoarding. We cannot kill fear or greed. They built civilization, but we can understand them so they serve us instead of control us. And next time you see the stock market crash, or a nation go to war, or families fight over inheritance, or social media explode in outrage, pause and remember. You are watching biology, ancient wolves in modern suits. The same fear that once hid from tigers now hides from recession. The same greed that once hoarded nuts now hoards stocks, real estate, likes. But awareness is power, and maybe the real evolution is not technological but psychological. The day humanity collectively recognizes its emotional wiring, learns to self-regulate, raises children with safety, not chaos, builds societies with transparency, not corruption, teaches compassion, not competition alone, that day the pendulum may still swing, but we will move with it gracefully instead of being smashed by it. Because fear protects life and greed expands it. Both necessary, both dangerous when extreme, and balance is the art of civilization. Thank you for watching this video.